Well, we thought we'd do this together, so knock it out before we go to Puerto Rico to this remote island somewhere. It's in the beginning, you wondered what the game would be like, but after watching being Veterans Day and all the exposure we are giving our military, rightfully so, Richard and I both feel it's just such a great honor to be part of this game, honoring our veterans. Besides, obviously, Minnesota versus Louisville, it's and the opening game of the season on national television. I just think it's really an unbelievable privilege for both programs to be playing in this game, and that's the way both of us feel. Regardless of Big Ten versus ACC, I almost said Big East, I almost said AC, I almost said conference, you'd say. Besides being ACC versus the Big Ten and an opening matchup meaning so much, it's just such a tremendous privilege, and we're really excited to get to the island and put on a good show for everybody.
Yeah, and I could echo that. I mean, we were talking to the team on the bus before getting off, and I told them, I think you'll realize when we land what this game is really all about. And I know so much is made of us versus them and me and him, but when we get there, I know our guys will learn a lot and be very gracious and make sure they embrace and enjoy it as much as possible.
Questions? We want some crap between you two. Come on, trash talk.
We're all out of breath from trash talking.
We made us do it for like 5 months, so we've run out of material.
Richard, what has it been like? Because you've played it before, but now to open the season and to spend all summer, talking about it, everybody talking about it.
Yeah, totally different. I mean, at FIU, I'm collecting a check and moving on. That was a guarantee game we needed to play. We're here, certainly, I mean, we're preparing to win a game. And obviously, regardless of him, it's a great opponent, top 10 opponent. I think it's the third or fourth time we've ever opened a season versus a top 10 opponent in school history. So we understand that we're playing a great opponent. We got to get prepared for that. But it's not, certainly never comes up in the locker room, we got to beat my dad or anything like that. I mean, we understand the game plan and we got to stick to it.
Chris said he wasn't sure where he should sit, one bench, one side, or one. How are you guys going to tell him and Michael and Joanne where they should?
Well, Joanne and Jacqueline will sit behind his bench. Michael will sit behind mine, and Chris will go to the highest bidder. Ryan and Jacqueline can. Oh, excuse me, Jacqueline's not coming. I forgot she's working now for a living. She's a grammar school teacher.
Yeah, I mean, so many people make a big deal about where Mike and Chris are sitting. I think they care more about who they're going to celebrate with after the game. That's more important to them than where they're sitting.
So will you buy if you win?
Be a first. It would be a first.
I'll fight for the whole island if we win.
Has anybody met Norwood Teague, the AD of Minnesota? He's really a great guy, and so excited that he gave Richard the job. But when he won the NIT last year for all the Minnesota people, we went to, what was the name of that place where we stayed at the Big East? A hotel. Anyway, we went to this hotel, and Rare was the name of the bar, and our family was there, but all Minnesota boosters and all their people celebrating. And I found out why Norwood Teague is such a great AD, because at the end of the night, and there's 100 people, it's a big bar bill and food and everything included. Norwood was nowhere to be found, and Dad picked up the tab for all the Minnesota boosters. That's why he's a great AD, the way he saves money. I'm still waiting for that check.
Yeah. They're the #1 revenue producer. I don't know if you heard that.
You talk about his team. I mean, what concerns you the most about going against them?
Well, I think they've got great experience. Last year they played, and they'll do it this year again. They'll play a top 7 schedule. And last year they had some great victories. They were a layup away against Northwestern being an NCAA team last year. They win the NIT, and they beat Florida State twice from the ACC. They beat SMU from our league in the championship game. They beat Wisconsin. And certainly they have a lot of really quality Big Ten wins. So, Louisville's not going to scare their players. certainly, because they've played a lot of top 10 opponents before. And whether we're top 10 or not remains to be seen. We'll know a little bit more because we're playing a veteran basketball team that's deeper than they were last year. They're a very underrated team. And I watched them play last year, every possession almost, lived and died every possession. And they got a senior backcourt, 2 outstanding centers, a really good junior college small forward. Their power forward is more like a 3-man. He's almost like a pick and pop guy. And their bench is much stronger than they were last year. So it's a great opener for us. You know, like Richard said, they're preparing to win. We're preparing to win. We know we could lose this game if we don't play well, and they know if they don't play well, they could lose the game.
For both of you, you guys have coached against each other before, but how different is it maybe this time as opposed to maybe you guys played when you were at FIU?
Well, I look at it, you know, I look down the other end of the bench and I see him, and I just have great pride in the fact that he's a Big Ten coach. But we both know that this is Minnesota versus Louisville. And it's not going to help. It's not a father-son matchup. It's Minnesota-Louisville. And we both know we have good teams, but both preparing for somewhere down the road. It'll make us both better. We know each other inside out and outside in. We know our plays. We know our offenses and defenses. So it's going to all be about execution.
So since you know his plays and you coach, are you going to have some bogus calls in there if he's trying to listen down the other end?
He knows we're going to try to do some different things, and you know we have never played a triangle and 2. He will not be ready for it. But we have to play. Their backcourt is something that must be stopped, and I'm going to try it for the first time in my coaching career.
You leaving?
No, I do not. I honestly, our exhibition game, and I actually haven't watched a lot of his film, and I know he probably hasn't with ours, because we do know what we're going to do, but I almost came out of a timeout just to mess with Mike Bellato and run one of his plays, because I know Bellato would start laughing, but I didn't do it. But we know what, you know, we're going to have different things that we haven't showed, but we know what we're going to do. It's going to come down to execution for both teams, and that certainly is important in every game, and it's going to be important for both of us.
Richard, what do you know some of his, you know, the older players very well. You were still here in recruit. But you've seen him. What do you think about his team and what he's?
Well, it's funny. I was trying to think of somebody asked me if I've coached any of the guys, and Wayne is the only pure senior, 4-year senior on the team. So Wayne was the only guy. Certainly, their starting 5 is as good as any starting 5 in the country, and they're young on the bench. And obviously, once that bench starts to get some more experience, they could be a very, very complete team and a top team in the ACC. I mean, I think Montrez is obviously first-team All-American pick for a reason. Terry's going to have, hopefully, a year where he can explode. And then Chris Jones is playing great basketball, and Wayne is a veteran. And Mango is a solid player as well. So we, you know, top to bottom, they're as good as any roster we'll face.
Richard, how do you slow down Montrez?
I hope to speed him up. I don't know if I want to slow him down. You know, I think you can't simulate Montrezl Harrell. I mean, I tried to go to the Vikings locker room and get one of those players to come over, but you can't do it. I mean, you can't do it. And so that's going to have to be an adjustment for our guys. He plays so hard, and it doesn't matter who he's going against. And certainly our guys can learn from that. But, you know, certainly going to have to help as much as possible. And, you know, but that's not an easy task.
Do you guys have any sense what the atmosphere is going to be like? I'm seeing this hangar and the video what it might be like.
Well, it's obviously, do you know what it holds, Kenny?
About 1,400.
1,400. It's going to be all military people. We have about 60 tickets, each of us, and it's going to be all military. So it's, you know, it's going to be good atmosphere, but it'll be very warm. It'll be 90 degrees the day we play, probably 75 at nighttime with no air conditioning. And we both have turned up the heat in our gyms to try and simulate it. You know, he's got a big edge because his bench is much deeper. We have a bunch of young guys who will not play. So he'll be able to play probably 9 to 10 deep, and we can go maybe 6, 7.
You guys were to play one-on-one in the Rob, who would win?
He would, easily. I won't let him brag about himself, just today.
Going back to the NIT, just talk about what that was like watching him coach, being in that kind of game, and seeing how far he's come from being an assistant in this program and starting.
Well, I really thought he did a great job last year, but I even thought the year before was as good as I've seen it in terms of coaching. With my son assistant, it didn't matter. At FIU, he had 8 new players at a program that was decimated. He was playing 4 walk-ons, and he came within 2 points of the Western Kentucky game of going to the, here we are playing for an NCAA berth, and there are the AD of FIU, few administrative people, and then 8 people from Louisville rooting for him against Western Kentucky with 2,000 or 3,000 people. And that, to me, was as good a coaching job as I've seen in quite some time. Last year he did a terrific job, but the first year was really special. I think that's one of the reasons why he got the Big Ten job. And, the one thing that Richard has done that really makes me proud is, he doesn't say, I think a lot of the Minnesota people are going to see what we have here and where he's practicing tomorrow in the KFC Yum Center and the practice facility. And the one thing he has not done, he said, this is my home. We're not going to complain with what we don't have. We're going to really fix up the home that we do have. And he's taken a place that would be similar to, what's the name of the place where they played in the old days, Darryl Griffith, what's it called?
Crawford Gym.
Crawford Gym. He's taken like a Crawford Gym, dressed that up to something really nice. Locker rooms, new weight room. I mean, their weight room right now is better than our weight room. And he's dressed it up until a practice facility arrives. He's taken their home and made it a great home. And it's spent a lot of money doing it, but he's dressed up that home until they get what they have, what they need. So they've got everything right now in Minnesota and I'm sure they're going to have a great recruiting class coming up with letter of intent right around the corner.
Is there anything that he does similar to you that you wish you wouldn't do? I mean, the mannerisms.
The only thing I tell him and something I don't do is I tell him to watch his language. I really don't like when he swears. The one thing I taught him growing up is stay away from those things. And he just hasn't listened along those lines. He just swears too much.
Why do you think he's the only one that went into coaching?
I guess you have to answer that one.
I don't know. I mean, Chris he loves basketball, but he didn't play it. And Ryan didn't play high school basketball. I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Well, you had the opportunity to be a high school coach, I guess.
Yeah, I think what happened really was when I was a senior in high school, he moved here, and I was working his camp. And I was lucky enough to meet a high school coach by the name of Mike Hart, who was out of Rhode Island, Barrington, Rhode Island. And he was working the camp, and he came up to me and said, hey, would you like to be a volunteer assistant for us? And I said, that kind of like flipped the switch a little bit and kind of got me thinking. And I did it in college. I would drive over there, and I think I got the bug there. I think everyone in our family loves basketball. But now do you want to make the commitment to be a part of all the highs and lows of basketball? And that was something I had to decide. But I had people along the way, like a Mike Hart from St. Andrews. Tim Welsh was really, really great to me. The assistant coaches at Providence College were all really good to me. And I think it just all snowballed from there.
We'll go to the phone lines. Any questions there from the phone lines right now?
Yeah, I've got one for Rick. A couple for Rick, if that's possible.
Go right ahead.
Rick, this is Amelia Reyna from the Star Tribune, by the way. I'm working on a story on not the similarities between you two, which we always like to talk about, but the differences. And one of those obviously is sort of coming up under the name Pitino. Obviously for you, you were working to build that name, to make it mean something before it did, and how different is that experience that you had, do you think, versus Richard's now, coming up sort of, under this name that has become a huge umbrella and now affects how he comes up as well?
Well, I think Rich has answered that question many times, and I agree with him. his name is not, a name is never going to help anybody win or lose a basketball game. He's had certain privileges by growing up in a basketball family, and he's also had a lot of hardships growing up in a basketball family because you don't win every game. And certainly he understands the ups and downs. We talk all the time about social media and you know, the pitfalls of social media and how you have to isolate yourself away from it. But he understands now. He's at a place. He did not get the Minnesota job because he had our last name. He got the Minnesota job because Billy Donovan highly recommended him to Norwood Teague. And now he's got to prove himself, obviously. He's off to a great start. And we grew up, if you want to know the major difference between the two of us, we grew up so differently. You know, I grew up in a totally different family environment than he's grown up in. And different times, I grew up where my aunt and uncle lived upstairs, my grandparents lived in the middle, and we lived in the basement. He didn't grow up that way. So it's he grew up in a little different environment in Lexington, Kentucky, and Boston.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate that. And I also, on a much lighter topic about the differences between you two, he told me the other day, obviously you're both into horse racing, but the ownership part of it that you're obviously really into, he says he thinks is maybe one of the worst investments. I'm not sure I'm investment on the planet or something like this.
Trying to start a fight, Amelia?
I agree totally with his assessment of horse racing. And none of my children have got into ownership, or in fact, none of them even like to bet on horses, which is totally different. I like to bet and own on both of my children. Are way too wise for that. They don't bet them and they don't own them.
He said too that you're really into stocks. He's not at all. Is there anything that he's really into hobby-wise that you just can't understand that side of?
No, he's pretty. I'm not into stocks. Other people.
Pays people to do it.
No, he's. I think when I was his age, I wasn't into stocks either.
He's a much more well-rounded person than me.
At 62.
Are
Yeah.
you telling me that Richard doesn't have enough, not very many hobbies for Richard?
No, I just don't think Richard's paid enough money by Minnesota to be into stocks.
Thank you.
She'll tweet that.
Any other questions from the phone lines?
Yeah, this is Marcus Fuller from the Pioneer Press. Rick, can you just talk about when you did hear from Norwood Teague about the Minnesota job for your son and you know, your thoughts on him taking on a Big Ten job at his age and what he told Norwood?
I just told Norwood, you interview him. He's one of the best assistant. I'm not going to talk about my son because I love my son. I'm going to talk about the assistant coach. I think he's one of the better assistant coaches I've ever had, and I've had some great ones. I said, but you meet him, you interview him, and if you have any questions, certainly as far as the assistant coach, he's more than capable of handling the job. I think he'll do a great job for you. He's a relentless worker, a relentless recruiter, a great communicator, an awesome scout, and I think Billy Donovan was the introduction, and he called me back right after he interviewed him and said, you were right. He's the guy I want for the job, but I've got to interview a couple other people. And then Richard came back and we talked about it and said, is this the job that you want to take? And he said, yeah, I absolutely love the place. I couldn't believe what a great city, what a nice community. I obviously, as a pro coach, played the Timberwolves and knew that Minnesota was a great, vibrant city, one of the best cities in America, actually. And so he's fallen in love with the place. I'm really excited about that. We take our annual trip a year with a bunch of people here, maybe once or twice a year, and we really enjoy going to the barn.
Make sure you write Twin Cities, Marcus. Twin Cities.
One more question, Rick. When you left to go to Florida, in your mind, were you thinking, hey, this is the step he needs to take, get a head coaching job to coach under Billy?
Well, you know, if the first time around he wasn't ready to coach at Minnesota, and he was ready to coach at FIU, when he came back, he was more than ready to take on any job. I would have felt very comfortable retiring and having him step in here at Louisville because he was ready after coming back and serving as an associate coach. Now he's, he thinks he's, and we talk about this, he says, I think I've got one of the best jobs in all of college basketball. And it's what he makes of it right now and where it can go. He sees no difference between Wisconsin, Michigan State, Michigan, and Minnesota. He thinks they're all great jobs, great traditions, and he's just very excited to be a coach there. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. It's an awesome. He's got one of the best ADs in the business, and it's whether it's Minnesota hockey, Minnesota football, you name it. The Minnesota golf, which I couldn't believe won the Big Ten. They've got it rolling right now.
Hey, thank you on the phone lines. Any other questions here in the room here?
Richard, what was it like last year in the NIT with your father behind you watching?
It was funny because for me, certainly it was nice that he was there supporting me as well as the rest of my family, but it kind of brought me back to all the games where we sat behind the bench and lived and died with every possession. And it was good for him to go through that every now and then and see what we deal with all the time. But it was great. I mean, we want him. The nice part about when this game is over, he can start becoming, a part of our program again, just like I hopefully am a little bit of a part of his program. But he's been extremely helpful with everything. And regardless of the X's and O's part, what he's so good at, better than any coach in the country, is building a program, the culture of a program, just top to bottom, highly motivated people. You look at what he and Tom Jurich have done with the facilities here, with the fan support, and so on. It's unbelievable. And, that's something that we try to model ourselves after. And when I have a resource like that, I'd be silly not to use it.
Rick, you said you guys played golf about 5 times this summer. Who won? I'm curious.
He actually got, we now play at the same handicap, and he actually won and kicked me pretty good. And then he said at the end of the summer, he said, boy, you had a tough summer. And he said, and then he patted me on the ass and said, get used to it. And so it's, I walked away thinking, what did he mean by that? Did he mean golf or other sports as well? But, we used to have and we probably do it this year because he's coming in Christmas Eve, I hope. But we used to have an annual Christmas morning basketball game, 2-on-2 in our family. And we would just, at the end, just go out to a tavern and just spend an hour or two together or go home and have a glass of wine. But we've had a lot of great traditions in our family. And now him being in basketball, it doesn't end. It's like everybody said right now, what are we going to do when you step away from this game? Our social life is over. I said, no, it's just moving on to Minnesota. And so this game's going to mean a lot to our family. It's not about winning and losing. Like I tell them, the team that executes the best is going to win. The other team's going to move on and just try to get better from that game. And we know we could lose this game. We know we could win this game. It's all going to come down to execution. But either way, I'm going to be real proud of the man coaching opposite us. And my players all know Richard very, very well. And it's going to be an exciting opening part of college basketball season. And like I said earlier on, we are privileged to be part of this armed service game. We're very, very excited about it.
Richard, he said the other day, he was talking about how neat it is for you guys to come here and both go together. You thought about the ride back, though, for somebody and how difficult it's going to be?
Well, thank goodness we're not going the day of. If we went back after the game, I'm normal after losses. Maybe it's because I'm more used to it than he is. But he's a maniac after losses. He's gotten much better, actually. He's gotten much better. So, actually, I don't think it's people have asked that a lot. I don't think it's going to be a big deal either way.
Our team will be very upset. I won't be upset because, my son just won and beat a top 10 team. So, we're going to go back to the drawing board and say, what did we do wrong? But I'll be very, very, this is not that type of game where I'm upset for 24 hours because I won't be. My son just got a top 10 victory, and I'll be very excited for him. My team will be running around Puerto Rico for about 2 hours, but outside of that, we won't take it too hard.
Is there going to be much socializing or getting together between the two
Yeah,
teams?
we're going to. Oh yes, definitely. I told our guys, treat these guys like brothers, and when the game starts, It's like any other game. We're trying to get a victory, but we'll socialize together. Remember, we're going to a Coast Guard base where we're going to experience what they do, their culture on a Coast Guard base, and the family's going to get together. I get to spend a lot of time with my grandchildren who's staying over my house tonight. I get to see them in the morning, get to spend time with them. I haven't spent time with my grandson Jack. I've just seen him one time, and so I'm really pumped up about that. Yes.
How old is he?
6 months.
What do you hope your players get out of that experience of being down there?
Well, we don't actually know until we experience it, what the Coast Guard has in mind. But, ESPN does a phenomenal job with setting this game up and getting us to go through the experiences of it from the uniforms we have, the camouflage uniforms. And, it's quite obvious that they got their best talent, their best producers, everybody behind the game. And like I said, Richard said he wanted to get great exposure for the. I didn't realize what a great thing it is for us as well. Looking at it, I just didn't want to play my son, but it's great for Louisville basketball to be part of this, and I'm glad he talked me into it.
I know you're not a big uniform guy, but do you like the uniforms that you guys are going to be wearing?
I think they're great, and I think his uniforms came out great.
You guys love that kind of stuff, don't they?
Yep, the shoes, everything about it is going to be awesome. It's good that most of the people from the Coast Guard are from the Louisville area.
Just make sure we don't get into a Nike Adidas debate here.
One more. You may have one more.
Don't ask whose uniforms are better.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you from the phone lines. We're done here.